I am Tara. This is Jill. This is Mike. We've been shooting
Tara's
for
getting-
4 hours. And
Tara's getting tired. She's down to this is Jill. This is
I think this is the longest shoot we've ever done, actually.
yeah.
Penny Pension Mama, 500 Ways I Lived on $500 a Month. This is Mom's book on how she did it. Like, the actual tips. So, like, she painted her linoleum floor instead of getting new floor. You know, things like that. But this goes with her story of why we had to do that. So, yeah, the videos are why, the book is how. So
Yeah, exactly. And so I was finished the last video. I was telling 3 different things that happened a year into our illness that radically changed things so that I started feeling better. And we already touched on the fact that God said you can be sick now. And it just lifted a weight off my shoulders, and something just clicked in me. And like I said, when David found out he didn't have to go to school anymore every single day and try so hard, he started getting better. And I think the same type of thing happened with me when God said, he gave me permission to be sick. The other thing that happened was not smaller, but it really made a big difference, was one of the symptoms I had from the chronic fatigue was I had cold sores across all of my lips. Sometimes I would have 3 to 4 of them the size of a quarter on the top and bottom of my lip. They were so painful, and they looked horrible, and was just awful. Even to this day, my lips are numb in some spots, and I have a little discoloring just from those cold sores, and they wouldn't go away. You usually get one cold sore and it lasts for, a long time, but it eventually goes away. This I kept on my mouth constantly. So, it was hard to eat just with that, even alone. And I didn't go to the pharmacy very much, but we still needed things. There was no medicine we were taking for this chronic fatigue syndrome, but David needed an inhaler. We had other types of medicines because we got colds really bad. We were very susceptible to things like that. And so once in a while, I'd go to the pharmacy. We did have them deliver, but I sometimes had to go, in there. And I got to know the gal a little bit, not real well, but I know her. And I came in one day with all these cold sores. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, my goodness, those things look miserable on you." And she said, "I'm going to give you a little secret." This was the pharmaceutical gal. She said, "It's the best kept secret in the pharmaceutical world. And they don't want people to know about this because if they did, all the cold medicines and all that would not sell as well. They wouldn't have as much need for them if people knew about this one item." But she said, "I want you to try it because what it does, it kills if you have a virus in your body." And this was the first time I realized that the chronic fatigue syndrome was related to a virus. She said, if you have any kind of a virus in your body, it sterilizes the virus. It doesn't kill it, but it sterilizes. So it'd be like if we lived in a world where we couldn't reproduce and all of a sudden there was nothing but old people, and then eventually they all died off, then the human race would disappear. And that's kind of what this, a form of what this did for the viruses. It would sterilize them until eventually they would just die in your body or go away. Part of our problem with chronic fatigue syndrome is the virus attacked our body, and I think it did permanent damage to certain parts and things in our body. So even if the virus is kind of gone, it still did the damage. But anyway, so she gave me this stuff, and it was called lysine. And she said it has 0 side effects. You really can't have any side effects from it, and it can't hurt you. You can pretty much take all you want of it. And I started taking about 1,000 milligram in the morning and 1,000 milligram at night. And I couldn't believe it. The cold sores went away. And it's been 25 plus years since I've started taking it. And I have had maybe 2 cold sores flare up or actually come into being. And both times I hadn't taken my lysine the way I normally did. I would be back at Tawra's or something and just wasn't doing my meds like I should. And only twice in that amount of time. I've had, I can't even think if I've had one cold. I maybe have had one cold in that amount of time. I've gotten sinus infections, but there's a difference now. Sinus infections are bacterial. This stuff does not work for bacterial. And the sinus infections would go into my chest and become like bronchitis and pneumonia. So I get those sometimes, and those I have to go in and have antibiotics because they won't go away for me. But the lysine kept colds at bay. I haven't had any problem with the cold sores. And if I do feel a cold coming on and I'm sneezing, I can tell when I'm starting to get a cold and I start sneezing or whatever, I up the ante and I'll maybe take some like 1,000 milligrams every 3 to 4 hours for 2 days, and it totally disappears. The same way I can sometimes feel a cold sore coming on and I up the ante and it never comes out full-fledged. So and even though that helped with those simple things, what I didn't realize until like a couple of months later, because I started feeling better, slightly. I mean, this was all very slight, but I was doing better. To go from totally bedridden to be able to get dressed and start eating was amazing for me. And I found out a few months later, an ad came in, and I can't remember, out in a magazine. I don't remember what it was. It was like Saturday Evening Post or something. A friend gave me this ad, not an ad, but an article in the magazine. This journalist had chronic fatigue syndrome, and I think it was one of the first articles that ever come out on this illness. Nobody knew anything about this, so it was so amazing to see this in the magazine. And what he talked about was the lysine. He said, what got him over it. He started taking, and he took even more than what I did. I've never taken as much as what he said, but he took huge mega amounts of the silly lysine, and he started getting better. And it dawned on me, I thought, I bet you that lysine is starting to help me get a little bit better here, and start being able to function. So the lysine was another thing. After God told me I could be sick, then I started taking the lysine. And then I think we went to a total of 10 doctors by the time all was said and done, trying to find out what was wrong with us. We hadn't been on the Center for Disease Control yet at this point. We didn't know anything about it. And we went to the 10 doctors, and finally, I didn't have any medical for me. And so I hadn't been to any doctors at this point. I just kept taking the kids. And but they were locked into a primary physician, and he was just sending us to one place after another, and then they'd send us someplace else. And we were getting nowhere. So I finally thought, I'll take the money. And when I was at the counseling center, once again, here comes people in my life that God dropped in my lap. And at the counseling center, this woman doctor, started coming to the counseling center. And we would sit and visit for she'd have to wait. So we'd visit for 15, 20 minutes. So she went back for her appointment. And we really got to talking and enjoying each other's company. One day she showed up an hour early. And I said, oh, did I mess up your schedule and schedule you, at the wrong time or something? She said, oh, no. She said, I just loved visiting with you. And so she said, I just came in early so we could just sit and visit. And from that point on, she'd come in an hour early every time for her appointment. And we would visit for that whole hour, and we became really good friends. Now, we didn't socially do anything, but, we got to know each other really well. And so I thought, she said, if ever you need a doctor, just holler, and I said, well, I didn't have medical at this point, and blah, 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 and just left it at that. Well, then at the same time at the counseling center, when she was starting to come in, another woman started coming in, and I got to learn the people my desk was awkward at the counseling center. I was here, and like 3 or 4 feet in front of me was where everybody sat that were and so I'm sitting here nose to nose with the clients, and so you just don't sit there staring at people. And I didn't have that much work to do, and I usually did the piano parts at that time, but I try to have a little bit of ethics and not do piano parts while we had clients in the office. And so I would visit and I got to learn some people that came in, they were so nervous, they just want to talk, 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 you know, and they would just, and so I would visit with them to try to help them relax. And then there would be others that would come in, and they didn't want to look at you. They didn't want to talk to you. They were so embarrassed, so humiliated. They were scared to death, didn't know what was, they didn't want to have any, they would actually turn where they put their shoulder towards me, and I could tell immediately. And so I would never talk to them. I tried to respect, you know, each person that came in, what they needed. Well, this other woman came in, and I looked at her card, and she was the one that I could tell she didn't really want to talk, but I looked at her card, and I said, oh my goodness, you're my neighbor. Well, I wasn't going to tell her where I lived necessarily, but I was just so shocked to see pretty much my address almost right on this card. And I said, you're my neighbor, without thinking. And she said, oh, okay. And that was it. And I thought, oh boy, I'll be very careful here, you know, and didn't say anything more about it. She kept coming for months. Both these ladies came for months. Well, fast forward, I left the counseling center now. And well, before I left the counseling center, the one lady that wouldn't speak to me, I came home on lunch from the counseling center one day, and my phone, I usually didn't go home at lunch, so this was so odd that I went home for lunch that day because they wanted somebody in the office at lunch. But they told me I could go home. My phone was ringing. I picked it up, and it was this woman that was the neighbor of mine. And she looked up my phone number in the telephone book, and she was hysterical. She was coming apart at the seams. She said, where is Steve? You don't know what's happening. I need to talk to him. And she was just coming unglued. And I said, okay. I said, I'll try to get a hold of Steve. Do you want me to come down there to sit with you until we get a hold of Steve? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, sit down. And she said, okay. And she sat down. I said, now take 10 deep, really slow breaths, and I'll be down there. And I hung up, tried to call my boss, couldn't get a hold of my boss, but I left, so I left messages everywhere for him. Went flying down there to try to get this woman calmed down.
Hold on 1 second. What? Oh.
Okay.
Is that Dave, my love?
No, it's BJ. He just sold his car.
And meanwhile, Dave is interrupting the show, and
There's Dave. I knew he was someplace around. My good-looking grandson. Is his brain still smart too, Mom?
Yep.
I miss his weird noises, his weird teenage boy noises.
Can I make popcorn?
No. Okay, go on. I'm going to have to continue while that's what you're doing. Okay. Okay, sorry, we had a kid interruption. Mike had to go step out. We're selling a car.
We're going to
continue. Go
continue.
get kids at school, so I'm going to have you keep going. So she was calling you hysterical.
So, you know, I was trying to get her calmed down, and I said, do you want to talk about it? She said, nobody would understand. Nobody's ever been through this. And I said, well, let me just talk to you for a little bit and tell you my situation. So I started telling her about my situation, and she stopped crying immediately. And she looked at me, and she said, oh my goodness, did you know God sent you to me? And I'm looking, no, I did not know this. She said, God sent you to me. And she was just like in awe. And I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't know what was going on. She said, your situation is exactly like mine. She said, I didn't think there was another person in the whole world, you know. And so from that point on, she was like my best friend. And we were really good friends for, I think about 10 years or so. We became really good friends. And I wanted to tell you about these two ladies because they now show up in our lives later. And so here, this was one of the other things that happened. So a year into the illness, I decided to go to this doctor, that I go and see her and see if she could maybe help us. And so
how did you get this doctor's name?
Well, she was the one that came in at the counseling center and talked to me.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the one that kept coming to the counseling center and talking to me. We became good friends. So I decided to try her and see. And so I went in and told her about David. And so what she did was we switched David over to her and you over to her. And then that way she kind of used you guys for the guinea pigs because I couldn't afford, because I had no medical. She would take the blood work from you guys and we all had the same, so if we could find out what was wrong with you, then she would know what was wrong with me. So we started going to her, and she was bound and determined to help us. Well, in the meantime, a couple weeks later, the neighbor friend that I'd gone to, she came running down the street to me and she said, look at here. She said, I got a letter from my friend in Alaska. She has all the symptoms you have, and she's been going to a ton of doctors, and they think they know what's wrong with her. It's a stuff called chronic fatigue syndrome. She said they don't know anything about it. They don't know, but one of her doctors has heard about it. Her symptoms are identical to you guys's. So I took all the information she gave me to my doctor, and she started the ball rolling to find out about, she had something more concrete to go on. And so I just thought it was so amazing. God had brought these two women into my lives at that time. And eventually this doctor got us into, she was the one that got us onto this program for the Center for Disease Control and got us into all of that and helped us identify what was wrong for sure between her and this neighbor friend of mine. And so we started, so this was the third thing that started the ball rolling towards us getting better. Now, this doctor also gave me a brochure because she said after doing all the studying and checking this illness out for me, the other doctors didn't know me, they could care less, but she was really doing intense study and trying to find stuff. She said some of the doctors have found that if they give their patients symptoms are a lot like MS, people that have MS or multiple sclerosis, and they found that if they, and sometimes they can control, people with MS can control things in their lives that keeps the flare-ups from happening, I guess, and them getting quite so bad, keeps it a little under control. So she said, here's this brochure, and try doing some of the stuff in it and see what happens to see if it's going to help you guys because your symptoms are so similar. That brochure was amazing because I started doing things like, one of the first things was do not take a hot shower because it weakens your muscles. And that's why I had the shower problem in the story I told you a couple videos about. It was horrible, so I could no longer I couldn't even take a hot bath. Now, Tara has to for her fibromyalgia, but I can't take I have not had a hot bath for 20 plus years since I got that brochure. One time I even went to Tara and Mike's when they lived in Texas, and they had a hot tub. That was when they were coming out. I'd never been in a hot tub, and I thought,
one. The apartment we lived in had one.
yeah, it was their apartment complex where they lived had one. And so it was out away from the apartment building too, and I thought, oh, this will be cool. And I get in this hot tub without even dawning on me, because I'd had such control of things up to this point. I was in there like 1 minute. I couldn't get out. Again, like the show, I thought, what am I? And I thought, I'm going to boil to death. I'm just going to cook myself. I'm going to die. I can see the headlines now. Mother cooked to death or something in the hot tub. And of course, then here comes the panic attack, Finally, I got out of there. I thought, never again am I going near a hot tub. But you can't do the hot water. You have to be very, very careful. That's the heat, you have to control the heat and humidity. Those are a couple of other things. The noises, we can't have a whole lot of noise. I don't know how Tara does the live stream. I have no clue how she does it. First of all, our minds can only concentrate on one thing. And, well, that was another thing. Like, when I love to read, but I couldn't, first of all, I couldn't hold the book up anymore to read it. It was too much of a weight. But I finally found out after reading this that I could David had made me a cookbook stand to hold my cookbook open one time. So I put the book in there. I cut a piece of paper out, a white piece of paper, and cut one line in it. So I would hold that paper up to the book, and I could read one line, move it down, read the next line. And then pretty soon I moved up to 3 lines because the word swam. It was too busy. There was too much busyness. So anything that was really busy. So I don't know how Tara does the live stream, because she's trying to do a recipe and get her mind on that. She's trying to talk to you guys and tell the recipe to you. She's got Jack whispering in his ear, "Can I have a cookie, Mom?" She's got the other 3 kids on the other side of the camera killing each other, slamming each other up against each other, the wall, and this, that. Not really, they don't do that, but they really don't do that.
No, but they're flicking each other with the
towel. Trying to
and
kill each other. And she's trying to scold them and tell them, discreetly scold them and tell them to settle down. Because, you know, whenever you're distracted with something, even teenagers, the kids know that's the time to cut up for Mom and Dad, from the time they're little till they're grown. And so, and then Michael's talking to her and saying, and somebody wants to know, and I don't know how she does it.
Well, that's why I make so many mistakes, like on all my soap videos. That's why I make so many mistakes on my soap videos.
It is why you make so many mistakes, and that's why I don't often cook on the live streams, because it's too much. So they said don't have a lot of noise. Even when I get into the car, it said don't have the windshield wipers going, the radio going, and the windows down so you hear the traffic. I have to drive with the windows always up, and I can't have the radio going if I have the windshield wipers going. And I I don't listen to music around the house. Tara does a little bit, I think, but I can't, because it's kind of confusing. So noise bothers me. Talking on the phone bothers me. That's why these videos bother us, because within 15 minutes, we just start sagging. The only time I can talk very much is to the kids. I do a little bit better when I talk to the kids and grandkids, but I have so many people call and talk for a long, long time, and it's just so hard. After 15 minutes, I die. Now, the last thing I want to touch on that was in this brochure was decision making.
Sorry.
Did you get the fly?
I
could do this so much better. I didn't have
Sorry.
Oh, now there's fly guts all over the camera.
It keeps buzzing me. I'm like, this stupid thing. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
So anyway, the last thing is making decisions. And it said to keep things simple in your world, as simple as possible. That's why I said when we had I don't have a whole lot of different types of food to choose from, because we can't decide. So we have to eat the same thing. I get up every morning and I eat graham crackers. If I didn't do that, I would stand for 20 minutes trying to decide what to eat for the day. I got a habit in my life. You make habits. I go in, I make my bed, I go to the bathroom, come in and do my coffee, take my pills, and I eat my graham crackers. If I don't have that much controlled in my life, it'll throw the whole day off for me if I miss something.
Well, that's why stores like Aldi's are really good, because you don't have to. Aldi is just they have one cinnamon, they have one Frosted Flakes, they have one egg, and that's why
you don't have to make decisions. And that's what's going to be my next point. When I go to Walmart, I try to focus out. Of course, I don't use shampoo now, but I would focus in on my shampoo that I bought and try to put blinders on for everything else. Because if I allowed myself to look down the shelves, I get disoriented. That's why, among other things, you have the food delivered to you. You don't have to do quite that amount, So going to the smallest store you can.
I almost need a Xanax anxiety pill or whatever after I come out of Walmart. I'm just like,
I have literally walked out of Walmart before and not bought what I went in there, because I got so overwhelmed and so confused from the decision making. And then the last thing on the decision making, and this is what really helped. Well, I started trying to control my day and night, so that when and this wasn't decision making, but I'll get up into that. I would get up. If it was daylight, I would force myself to try to walk into the family room, and I would lay in the family room. And then I would during the day, I would be in the family room, and then at night, I'd walk into the bed. So at least I had this at night. If it was night, I knew, and in bed, I knew it was night and day. I had to get that started. Then I started making myself sit up as much as I could during the day. You know, I would just lean there, but sit up. But then the next thing was I decided I need to start getting dressed. I would lay down while I was dressed, but I had to at least get clothes on. So that first day I went into my closet, made it into my closet, barely, but I made it into my closet. I couldn't get dressed because I couldn't figure out what to put on. I stood there and I was just like horrified. I couldn't decide. And I walked back and got into bed.
Yeah, I get physically ill every Sunday morning when we go to church. And I mean, by the time we're in the car, I am physically ill from just trying to get dressed for church because it is so stressful trying to think, okay, did I wear this same thing last week? I've only got like 5 church outfits anyway. But just trying to remember, did I wear this last week? Oh, wait, it's summer. I can't wear a long sleeve shirt. I'm going to get sick because it's too hot. And so, yeah, that's
why I start like on Friday trying to figure out what I'm going to wear to church on Sunday, because I know come Sunday morning I'll be wiped out if I don't figure it out ahead of time. So that's how part of the controlling, that we have to figure out how to control the illness and do things in sections like this. So after it was like a day or two later, excuse me, I went and I think I had one of the kids bring me a big box. And I walked into my closet and I literally, clothes hangers and all, took everything off my rods and dumped in this box. And I took everything off the shelves that was underneath and I dumped them in the box and closed the box up. I left out 2 pairs of jeans and 3 tops. And that for months and months and months hung in my closet. And even 3 tops would have been too much, except for usually I had one in the dirty clothes, and then I had one I was wearing, and then one was up there. The jeans, having 2 pairs of jeans was okay because they were identical, and there wasn't really I didn't need to make a choice. So I usually had one in the dirty clothes, you know, and one hanging. And so these were all things that I started doing. And so then I started to get dressed, and I would at least be dressed during the day. And then I started doing the 5-minute, I said that was going to be the last, but I was just going to mention here too, I started doing the 5-minute commercial thing to get things done. Because at this point I was still just watching TV because I couldn't do anything else. And then after a while of getting dressed and just sitting there, I thought, okay, I think I can go in. Well, first of all, I tried one time. I was actually feeling good for an hour, and I got up and I killed myself. I tried to do the laundry. I tried to get a meal fixed. I tried to vacuum. I was sick down flat, worse than I ever been, for 3 days after doing that. So I learned I'd overdone. So you have got to pace yourself, and you have to get control. So I started, when a commercial would come on, I would get myself up and I'd rinse the dishes off. Go sit down. Next commercial, I'd wash part of the dishes. Go sit down. I still to this day clean my bathroom in stages. I'll clean the toilet one day, the sink the next day, and the tub another day. And so those are some things that you need. And you'll hear with Tara's videos and stuff some more things.
Well, and that's the one thing, you know, and as you're watching shows and stuff, although I say this about HGTV, and HGTV is pretty bad now too, but watch what you're watching.
Yes.
Don't watch a bunch of soap operas, and actually even don't watch HGTV anymore. HGTV used to be good. It's not anymore. Because now you just see all these people buying houses they can't afford and, you know, remodel projects you can't do. But, you know, it's like Mom said, if I could only have Hallmark, that's all I would watch. Watch shows that aren't depressing. Don't watch shows like CSI. And I don't even know what's on. We haven't watched TV for 15 years, so I don't even know what's on. But whatever show is on now, the lawyer show where people are arguing.
Oh, get rid of all those things.
Stop watching that stuff. It does nothing but discourage you and bring you down. Watch something encouraging.
Even the Food Network, if you know, you think I should be fixing meals like that, and I can't fix meals like that. And if you find yourself feeling those feelings, it's okay to watch them if you don't feel that. But if you start feeling these things, you need to change. With HGTV, I started getting discontented with my house, really discontented. And when you're feeling feelings like that, you should not be watching something that causes that discontentment.
And so then the 5 minutes, what you were talking about, was during the commercial.
Yeah,
Each
during the 5-minute commercial.
Set yourself something. I hate goals. But if I can set a mini goal to go get as many dishes in the dishwasher during that commercial as I can.
Yeah.
Or sweep what I can in the kitchen floor. That's how we did it. And then we'd go sit down, and you'd be surprised what you can get done in an hour show.
We do an amazing amount. Amazing.
And then I'd bring the laundry in and fold it while I was laying on the couch,
Yeah.
So.
And, you have to do that because that's another way of controlling yourself, of not doing too much. Yeah. Because you can do too much. Now, we're not talking about the lazy person that lays there and doesn't want to do anything. That's a whole other program, But this is when you're ill like this, even if you have little tiny babies and you're up all night with the babies, these methods work for that. Or if you have sick kids, start just doing the 5-minute, the 5-minute type of thing, because you can get so much done. And even to this day, I have to control my life. I think one thing too I stopped doing that I didn't mention was I stopped apologizing. Why can't you come out and visit us? Well, I'm sick. Well, what are you sick with now? Well, why are you still sick? I stopped trying to explain myself to people. I stopped apologizing. I'm sorry, I can't go out to lunch with you. I just can't do things like that. It makes
When they ask me to do more stuff at church, I'm like, nope, I can't do treats for Easter, Christmas. Sorry.
Exactly.
Ain't gonna happen. I ain't gonna help with school, whatever.
Yeah, I used to feel so bad about saying no. I can't do it.
Yeah. And
I do it with guilt-free, And so anyway, so I hope these help people. Some of these ideas will help people a little bit. You think I covered most of the stuff? I think I covered everything, didn't I?
I think. I know people are going to be kind of upset and say, well, you didn't tell us. Well, this is it. I mean, we don't have a magic bullet. We're not doing it all. Like we said, I said, you're seeing what we want you to see.
Yeah.
I don't always, but I try to put on a smile and do the show.
And a lot of people can't even probably tell, but since we've been talking, your eyes have darkened. Yeah. And I can tell Tawra's fading. Yeah. And that was one thing that helped us too, was we had the three of us, and we kind of supported each other a little bit. At Christmas time when we get together, if Tawra says, I've got to lay down, I can't do this or that, David and our families don't think anything about it. If you have to go lay down while we're here visiting, we don't think anything about it. We understand. Yeah. And our families support each other. So we've been blessed with that we have each other. That really helps.
Get rid of friends that aren't going to be encouraging.
Well, that's what I was
going to say. Don't go to family functions if they're discouraging to you. We've had to knock off a bunch of our family. No offense. Sorry, guys, but I don't need the stress of your drama or your life. I have my own, and I can't.
It's not even so much that as the fact that they look at you, well, why are you sick now? Yeah. Or like you're a hypochondriac. They don't. Well, why can't you sit up and do this?
It's been 30 years now. So if after 30 years you haven't figured it out, I don't think you're going to figure it out. So I'm just going to move on my merry way. Because it's been 30 years now. So that's a long time.
And that's why I'm glad we can do this a little bit to help our viewers.
Yeah.
Because some of them don't have families or friends that understand, and they don't have a support system. And maybe in our small way, we can kind of be their support system a little bit because we had each other. Yeah. Type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, guys. Well, check out Mom's book, Penny Pinching Mama, 500 Ways I Lived on $500 a Month. And we will do another installment next time. I don't know what we're talking about next time, but we'll figure it out because, I don't plan ahead. Mom plans ahead. I don't. She was like, do you want to know what we're talking about today? I said, well, no. You're doing all the talking, so I'll just listen.
And I've been planning it for 4 or 5 months.
So anyway, all right, guys, please like, subscribe, and share. Please. Please, please.
Show the book.
And buy our books. Buy our books.
We'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.